now we have these two slugs. Why do we have slugs? Doesn't make sense. There's kind of these weird. Can you guess by chance what they might represent? It's a tricky one. There's probably no way to figure it out unless you've drawn this before. But let's go ahead and grab our slugs here and move them up. So you have one of them. It's just like a little bow shape, almost like a. Well, yeah, I guess a slug. Kind of like that. And then you have another one that looks like it's sort of like crawling, like you know how like worms and stuff will kind of inch forward, and it kind of goes like this and goes over like that. Little banana slug. And some more like that. And so I want to show you this as an abstraction first so that you kind of embed it as a 2D shape, as something to learn and practice, because if you can learn that abstraction, it'll be much easier to draw some specific angles. And let me show you what that is. And this will click once you see where it goes. So now what I'm going to do is fill in the blanks to really drive it home. It's one of the most difficult angles to draw of a human head. But if you can memorize this shape here and the relationship between those two slugs, all of this will become much easier. It might require some modification, but and then we put the cranium in there and some ears. And suddenly, you drew a very difficult angle. And we'll talk about the bottom part later on in a different part. But understand this relationship, because that's a very hard angle to draw. And in fact, grab a bunch of reference and trace over that and find your own kind of relationships of those two shapes, because they definitely vary. So let's test these secret shapes on actual photos. So this is part of the reference pack included in this course. And we have the first shape right here. And it's obviously always going to be different depending on how much the person has turned. And there's the second shape right here. Right? If we look at that abstractly and separate it, where these two shapes meet is about where the eye is going to be. And if you know where that is, you can just draw a line over here across the way to find where the other eye is going to be. Now, I was going to include another slug shape over here, but I feel like that might complicate things. But that's one way to look at it. Let's test this one over here. If you just memorize the 2D abstraction, it'll at least be a good starting point for being able to draw those difficult angles. Right? They look pretty simple. We could do a whole bunch of them. Let's actually try it the other way, in a mirrored way. So if we do one shape, and then the slug that's kind of crawling, it's going to be different every time. And we just fill in the nostril there. That's about where the eye is. Then the other eye, the other eyebrow, the other slug, which is actually pretty thin. It's not taking up too much space up there. I think we make the mistake from this angle of making all this stuff way too wide over here and there. But really, it's a very subtle play of those two shapes that we started with in a sort of abstract way. Right. And it's not perfect, obviously. It's just a quick example. But that's what I want you to look for and pay attention to. Not just in, attractive, idealistic looking female faces, but also what do those shapes look like on regular faces, and go out there, find a bunch of reference of different angles and check it out.